Hi guys, welcome to the next part of this tutorial series of Next.js 13. In this part, I'll be talking about how you can set up different styling libraries, import external CSS files like Bootstrap, and I'll let you know how you can configure Tailwind CSS and the Scss library. Okay, so first of all, when you create your Next.js 13 project, you see that you have this global.css file. It is applicable to all the components of all the routes in the app folder. The reason is that in the layout.tsx file that is loaded at the start of project, which is the layout of the whole app route, whole page. So it means that here it is by default loaded import dot slash global dot css. It means that this global dot css file is being used in all the components within this app folder. Okay, so now this page.module.css is specific to this page.tsx component. So whenever you need to create the css file of the other routes or the components, then you need to create it like the .module.css. It is a convention that if you use like this, it would be a good practice. So the way it is being used is styles.main, styles.description, and obviously it is coming from the page.module.css, right? So this is the by default setting for these two files, global.css and the page.module.css, right? So let's say that you have an external css file, and here I have created that css file, and here you can see that I have created this folder. You can add any file in any directory. Okay, you can add it in another folder as well. So this is the bootstrap.css file. This is the real bootstrap css file that I have added over here. Okay, now in any layout, wherever we need to use it, we can import this bootstrap css file. So here, if I want to use it in this layout or any of its child component, then I can import here, or you can also import in other child layout files as well. So let's say that if I want to import here, I'll just say import, and I will go to the bootstrap folder. So let's say like this. So bootstrap, it's actually the styles css and the bootstrap.css file. Okay, and now all of its classes which are written in the bootstrap are now we can use it in our layout or the other components. So we can now change the class name to container over here, or any bootstrap class that we want to use, we can utilize it in all the child components, right? So this is how you can use the external css file. Okay, so now let's talk about the styling libraries, that if we want to use it, how we can use it. So let's start off with configuring Tailwind CSS. So before that, let me install few packages of it. So npm install, the first thing we need to install is Tailwind CSS, and then the post CSS, auto prefixer CSS. And the post CSS and the auto prefixer CSS are actually recommended by the Next.js docs. So I'm just going to install it. It's downloading these packages from the internet, and it's going to create its references within the package.json file over here, right? And it's going to contain its libraries. You can see that these are created: Tailwind CSS, post CSS, and the auto prefixer, right? And it will be created within the node modules folder, right? There is I will now create this tailwind config.js file over here. Currently it's not created, so we can manually create that, or we can initialize it to set the default object inside it. So in order to generate it, we can use the npx Tailwind CSS init-p. Okay, so now you can see that it has created this tailwind config.js file, and we could, if we were not creating this through command, then we had to write this all by ourselves, right? So the only array we need to fill for now is this content, and the content actually require us to add some values and the files which we want to include and the files where we want to write our tailwind for. So we want to write all the files within this app folder. So let's say I'm going to copy one line. So this is the line and I'm going to allow it for all the types of the files, whether it's JS, TS, JSX, TSX or MDX files. Okay, so these are all the supported files within the app directory in which I will use the Tailwind CSS. Okay, and I can include the other files as well, folders like the pages folder if I have created, or the components folder outside this app directory. We can also create that. And if we were creating the source folder for these components, then we had to add that source folder over here as well. So for now, this is pretty much it for now. So I'm just going to save it. And next, we are going to go to the global.css file, and here we can include the CSS Tailwind base components and the utilities. So either at the top, so I'm going to add at the top, so I'm going to write Tailwind base, and I'm also going to write Tailwind components, and lastly Tailwind utilities, right? So now I have added this Tailwind base, and this global.css file is already imported in this layout.tsx file. It means that now this Tailwind CSS, it can be used in all the components because the layout is the main parent layout file, and when this global CSS gets included, it's going to include these three lines as well. So it means that these three lines can be used in all the components because of importing it in the layout file. So this is how you can configure your Tailwind CSS in your Next.js 13 project. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. So this is not the tutorial for teaching you the Tailwind CSS, what are the different classes and how you can make the UIs. But again, at the end of this crash course, I'll be creating a project where I'll be using Tailwind CSS to properly designing the layout for our project. For now, this is just for configuration. Now for this video, lastly, we are going to configure Scss, that how we can use it. You know, the Scss can be used to create conditional statements, can create variables or the mixins. So this is all supported in CSS. So whether it's Sass, less or SCSS library, let's configure those. So let's install Sass. So I'll come to the terminal and I will run npm install save dev Sass. So it's going to install this Sass in the package.json in the dev dependencies object. So all the components, all the packages that we need during the development but not on the production. You know, when we build the Next.js project, all the external UI libraries gets converted into the pure CSS or the pure JavaScript, so that the browser only understand the pure CSS and JavaScript. So but the Sass is only for the dev. So you can see it has created the separate object with the name dev dependencies and added its reference with the variant over here. So let's configure the Sass in our project. So configure it first. Let's go to the next.config.js. So here I will add some Sass options. So Sass options, and in this I'm going to include paths for it. So path dot join parentheses, and I'm going to take the directory which is the current directory, which is the within the route. So directory and then the styles. But at the top we need to import path equals to require path, because we are using the path over here. So I have required it, and I have included this path dot join underscore underscore dir name and the styles. Okay, so let's save it. Next thing we can do is, it's almost configured in next config and we have installed Scss. Now we can create our file for the Scss or Scss in any of our folders. So but I'm going to create this new file inside it, and I'm going to name it variables, since we can create variables within the Scss or SCSS. So module.scss, right? And in this, let's create few variables. So $, and I'm going to add the primary color, and I can name it blue. And all the variables that we create here has to be exported. So export, and here I can export primary color, and this is the value that we are going to be using within any component in as an attribute to any tag in HTML. Okay, but here I'm going to add the primary value color above that I have created. So this is the variable that I have created. And now if I need to use this in any of the components, let's say this page.tsx, first I need to import this. So in order to import this, I will enter the name of file, variables, and then the path of it. Okay, variables.module.css. And here if I want to apply any style to it, let's say h1, here I can write the style and then the color and then the variables dot primary color. Okay, so this is how I'm exporting that key from that variables file, and this file is being used, and I can create all the colors. If I'm creating some dark mode, light mode, and I can separate out primary, I can keep the variable name same, and I can have the different values after this based upon the light mode and dark mode. So this is how we can configure our Scss in our Next.js 13 project. So in the last video, we will be creating our large project in Next.js 13. Then I will be using all these libraries in our project, and I will create a fancy and heavy responsive UI for the project. So for now, let's say that in the next part, I will talk about some optimization based upon images, fonts, and how we can load the external images, and also some configuration in these files like next config or the Tailwind configuration files. So for now, that's pretty much it. Make sure you subscribe my channel, hit the like button. Thank you so much for watching.